Welcome back to Inverted Aviators RC. Today we've got the UMX Conscendo.
We're going to do a little unboxing, transmitter setup, and then connect this FPV camera right to the top of the plane.
Let's do it.
Looks like we got a wing, a little bit
Very nice.
little dihedge in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and does it just screw in with?
It looks, yeah, look, oh, that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Okay, we have one connector there. We have the same servos that are used in the UMX Turbo Timber Evolution.
Jeez.
That's a little beefy guy.
Cool.
That's
Look
super
at
cool.
those. So it's got the propeller that when it's spinning, it pops out, but then when it stops, it kind of
folds in.
makes it more aerodynamic.
Okay, so that looks like, minus this little Allen key, which again, no tools. So maybe that's just for...
So this is the 4-channel, so we've got elevator and rudder, and then we've got the ailerons, and then we can even mix these with our transmitter and do some like...
Flapperons or spoilerons?
Flapperons and elevons?
Maybe?
Well, we'll put it in,
Yeah.
we'll get it right eventually.
Yeah.
So is this a little protector here? Look at
Oh,
that.
that's clever.
I
Okay.
don't know if that's... Oh, maybe this is for like waterproofing or something.
Does maybe the manual say something?
Maybe we'll see.
We'll put it on screen when it does.
Yeah.
But
So where does the battery go? Is this?
oh, that's cool.
So we've got a little hatch here for the battery. That's really nice. And we've got some access ports here that might be useful.
Yep.
Interesting little Velcro strap here to
Keep that in place.
nice. Looks like a really nice motor in here.
Yeah. So okay, so we also have to think about where we want to put the camera, and that can be doesn't have to be a now thought, but we do want to, of course, put this Wolfwhoop Wt03 micro camera
Let's get that.
on the top, because we think that adding FPV to any plane is just so much fun. So this is all it is. It's about 17 grams, I want to say, mostly because I wanted to see what kind of weight we'd be adding to an ultra micro. As you can see, this is the common plane. If you want to know more about this camera, we do have a video about it and how to connect it to a plane and to goggles and other sort of VTXs. So feel free to check it out if you want to see how this camera will work and perform. But yeah, we're going to try to get it on there as well.
Okay, so to put this together, it's relatively simple. We say this because we had a little bit of issue, but you've got these little marks here. You line it up in the front, and then you hold this guy like horizontal or like with the wing, and then you push in and give it a little turn here clockwise, and just like that, now it's in line with the fuselage, and that's locked in. This isn't going anywhere. And so for our FPV camera, we were thinking putting it right on top here, putting that just about 1/3 up from the wing, from the leading edge of the wing, which should be the center of gravity. And so that means the weight of the camera won't affect how this flies, which is exactly what you want. And then it's out of the way of our little canopy here, so it doesn't get in the way of the battery hatch. All right, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, make sure there's this plug in here. It's got to go into this port here, the largest one. Make sure you just plug that in before you latch this down, because this works the ailerons, which is important.
So to set up the transmitter, first thing we're going to do is go down and create a new model. So we're going to down to System Setup, yes, Model Select, down to Add New Model, Create New Model, and we're good to go. Now we're going on to model type and make sure you are in this top left plane one. We don't need a sail plane. We're just in the normal plane. You can click data will be set. Yes, that is totally fine. go down to model name, and I'm going to rename this. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to rename it so it's really easy to tell which model to use when flying, so you can just scroll through and change letters. So I'll be right back. I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, that was pretty easy. So now we can go back, and if we go all the way back into the main menu, you can see now UMX Conscendo right at the top. So if we go back into it, we can set up, we're not all the way done yet, back into the system settings, yes, and we'll go down to aircraft type. We'll leave this as normal right now. We'll change that in a bit, but if we go over to next, we can actually change the image, and there's a really nice one. If you scroll all the way to the right, you will see a nice little T-tail glider. Nice propeller, that's the one we're going to use. So you go all the way back, and now in the main menu, you'll see you have a nice plane. Looks just like it. Very nice. But let's go back down into system setup. Yes, could go down to channel assign. And so gear and aux are going to be used. The fifth channel is whatever channel you want safe to control. So I like, instead of channel A, which is this one, I want to put it on H. So if you click on it and then flip the switch, it'll change to H. So you can see that I'm just flipping the switch, and then click, and you can scroll down. And aux 1 will be the flaps or flapperons or spoilerons, but that's right now set to D. I think I want G over here. So once again, I'm going to click on it and then flip the switch, and you can see now we're at G. Click one more time to confirm, and then that is all set up. We can go and see, yep, everything looks good. So now if we go all the way back to the main menu and scroll once to the right, you will see that gear is now controlled with this back switch, and the aux 1 is controlled by this top switch. So that means your channels are all set up just how you want. If you want different switches, just make sure you select the right ones when you're switching through. Next, we're going to go into system setup. Just one more time to make sure we got everything. Channel signs all good. Yes. Okay, so we're all set here. We can go back into the main menu, click once, and let's go down to throttle cut. Most important thing before you plug in your transmitter, let's set up the throttle cut. Now you click on inhibit and switch, well, whichever switch you want. It can be separate from the two you used before. I like doing this back one, which is A. So once again, I click on inhibit, I flip the switch, and once more to confirm. And as you can see now, the throttle is moving. If I hit the kill switch, it is now stuck at -100. Now, it is up right now, and I want it to be killed when it's down, because to me that means the plane is grounded. You can see from this angle, plane is grounded, it can't fly, or it's not grounded, it can fly. So in order to do that, you see these two, the black and white switch here. You scroll down and you click on it to switch which side is black. Now, the black means it is activated. So you can see the kill switch is activated because we're in the black side, and I can't move the throttle at all. And if I then turn it on, you see this little black nub is on the white side, which means there's no kill switch. I can move the throttle just fine. Now, one more thing I'm going to do is go down to require low stick. Right now it's no, which means if the kill switch is on and I have the throttle high, I can arm it still. And that is a little dangerous because if you accidentally flip the switch while the throttle's all the way up, your plane will just start revving really quick. So if you do the require stick low yes, that will mean that, let's do yes, if the kill switch is on, which means I can't move the throttle, and I leave the throttle all the way up, I can't turn the throttle on. As you can see, if the kill switch is now off, I can't move the throttle. But if I hold the throttle down, then I can arm and fly away, which is a way we like to do it to make sure everything stays safe and you're not actually going to cut your finger. So throttle cut all set up. Let's go down to, let's actually bind. So if you would like to plug that plane in, and we'll hear those nice chirps. All right, and then you're going to go into your transmitter, scroll all the way down to the bottom, system setup, yes, and near the bottom you'll see bind. Now don't have your transmitter directly at it. Hold it away. I'm going to hold it off to the right here, but just click bind, and bam, found it. Just far enough away, everything's going good. So you'll hear the plane move a little bit, and just give it a second. It might say auto configuring. That's making sure the safe is all working nice, and it'll go back to your main screen, and then we can do a little testing. So we have ailerons. We have, can you hold this, please? Yeah, so we got ailerons, looking nice. We've got the yaw at the back through the rudder. And we have the elevator. All looking great. And also do a quick little throttle test here. I'll just blip it. And so I'm going to kill switches off and just a nice little throttle. And you'll notice this motor stops. It actively cuts the throttle once you turn it off. And that is so these propellers can fold in. And then as you're flying, it'll be more aerodynamic. But again, I'll show you throttle on. The propellers go out. And once I throttle down, they immediately stops. Other motors will spin out. These ones stop. Pretty cool. So next thing we're going to set up is the flaps, right? So if your flaps aren't already set up, you can put it down for a second. You can go down into, let's zoom back in. You can go down into, you have to find the system setup. Yes, you'll go down to aircraft type and no, not yet. So
wait, why is this already set up?
I don't know. So let's actually test to make sure the safe is working. As you can see, safe should be the gear channel. So like we said earlier, I like the flaps to be set on H. So if you can hold it up, you can see that as I flip the H channel, and you can twirl it around, so it is actively trying to level it, as you can see in the ailerons. It's trying to stabilize it, and if I flip safe off, it's quiet, and it's not trying to protect itself. The thing you're hearing is AS3X, not the safe. But then if I turn it on, now as you can see, if you rotate it, you can see how it's trying to keep you straight. Give it a roll. Yeah, see how the ailerons are trying to level itself out? See a big deflection? And then if I turn it off, now it's not trying to stabilize. So remember, safe is attached to your gear channel, and in our case, that is up here. And then the flaps are on the aux channel, or whatever you have down here. So that's, again, here, and you can see that's how it works there. Now, if you're not seeing the flaps connect, what you want to do is hold the sticks. This stick will be bottom left, and this stick will be top right. So you hold those two, and then you toggle your safe switch. And you'll hear it do a separate chime. It won't sound like that switching. And then after that, it'll enable your flap switch to then work. So the first time we tried to set it up, those flaps weren't working. I'll cut this part out. That's dumb.
Yeah, that's weird. Why it doesn't work?
I know. Okay, so that's the kind of interesting thing you gotta do. Remember, bottom left, top right, toggle your safe switch, not the switch you want, the safe switch, and then after that, it will turn on your flaps. So then if we go into the flap setting itself, you're first gonna have to go into system setup. Yes, then it's aircraft type. Now we're changing it to one aileron, one flap. And so we go like that. Now we can go out of it, turn the throttle down, and now we have the ability to change the flaps. And you also notice the flaps no longer do anything. And that's because if you go into flap system, you'll see that they are inhibited. We do have flaps, and if you click on flaps, we will switch it back to switch G, just like we liked. We click once more to go into it, and now we have, you'll still notice nothing happens, and that's because everything is 0% here. So in the manual, we're going to do spoilerons at the top, and then nothing, and then flaps on the bottom. So it says, again, according to the manual, it is 45. I guess this will be, actually, flaps are on the top, which I don't want. I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go spoilerons. No, wait. Yeah, flaps on the bottom. Never mind. That's all cut out in the middle. So we're going to do flaps on the down position on my switch up here. So we're going to go 45. as the manual says, and the elevator needs a negative to kind of counteract that floatiness you might feel. So we're going to go negative 17. In the middle is nothing. So as you can see, nothing, down and flat. And then if you go up, these are going to be spoilerons, which will help. It'll do the opposite of flaps, and it'll make your plane, it'll be less lift, which makes your plane sink rather than having to dive to go down. So we're going to go down, and instead of positive, you're going to go negative 50. Negative 50. And we're going to need no elevator. So now if you can see here, we have in the middle, there's nothing. It'll be completely flat, normal flying. If you put the switch up, you will see spoilerons, which is, see they go up a little bit. And then if you go down, you'll have flaps. And if you want to adjust that, you can just change instead of 45 and 50. You can have it be a lot more aggressive. If you want to fly a little bit harder, do different things with these flaps. But pretty simple setup. So you can fiddle with all these settings after flying and trying. And if you don't want these 45 or 50, go ahead and try whatever you want. But that's the fun of flying, is there's no one right answer. It's all up to you and how you want to fly. And yeah, that's what we love about the RC. So this is all the flap setup. We're going to go back. We're going to set up the dual rates in Expo. I like putting it on this channel. So once again, we're going to click on the switch, which should be on switch C, the aileron channel. So we're on aileron 100% Expo when it's up. That's just what I want. So I'm going to go down here and select that it's up. And then we're going to go Expo is, you say 70? Or
50. Got 10.
10. Okay, so when it's on the high rates, we're going to have 100% on the dual rate and 10% in the Expo. And then if we switch it into down, now we're going to want 70 and 5. So 70 on the dual rate, 5 on the Expo. And now as you can see, as we switch this channel, it's super easy to go in between high rates and low rates. So that's the dual rate. You will have to do this the same for not only the aileron, but the elevator and the rudder as well. So I'm going to do that real quick. It should be exactly the same. So yeah. All right, so that's all that figured out. We can see on the plane itself, if we zoom out here, if you go all the way deflection and then flip into higher rates, you'll see that the elevator or the aileron here goes a little bit higher. And that's exactly what the dual rate is supposed to be doing. We can also test the safe here. So if I crank it and then turn safe on, you will see that it limits the movement of the ailerons and the elevators and all of the different control surfaces. You just get less when you're in safe. And that's the whole point of it, is to keep you safer, keep you flying smoother, and generally have more fun if you can't crash. So I think that's just about all we've got to set up in the transmitter itself. So yeah, next step is figuring out how to attach this FPV camera.
So connecting the camera to the board, we've got these little 3-pin leads, and conveniently there's this 3-pin slot here. And so all I got to do, link in the description for the Amazon link for these. They just go right into here and plug in just like that. And so we'll end up using the black and the red wire to give power to our camera. And so it'll end up just routing up here. We won't worry about this one. We'll cut it off. And then we'll fish it up through the wing somewhere. And then we'll solder this to our camera right here. And so we've got this little connector piece here. Yeah, grab that. And we'll end up soldering to this other part over here so that we can still disconnect it if we need to take the wing off. And so then we'll end up soldering this part kind of to the end of our wires here like this, giving us a little extension. And then we can plug in the camera straight to that.
Yeah, and it does say in the instructions to just throw things on the ground, so we just want to make sure we do everything to a T.
All right, so we got our camera here, and we're going to place it on top here. And so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to drill a hole in our wing, which doesn't sound, well, which isn't that scary. It's going to be a small hole. We're going to fish our wire through here, coming out the back, and then we're going to coming out the back here, and then we're going to plug it into the board itself. And so this hole, we need it to be 1 3/4 inch from the bottom here. And so just put it on this notch here. So we've got our hole going right here. I already marked it out, so I found it so easily. But we've got our mark there, and then we're just gonna drill straight through this. And so this is foam. This is gonna be really easy. Just don't
be
go
crazy.
Yeah, just play it safe. So you're not gonna run into anything on the backside because of where it's marked out. You would have to worry about the spars here and here, but we will end up going kind of in between. And so we'll just carefully go through here. Make sure not to hit your fingers on the other side.
Nice.
There we go. So we are through.
And bam.
Now we got our hole. So just doing a little test, we can grab our camera, and we might have to force it through a little bit just because the hole could be bigger. We just don't want to make the hole any bigger than it needs to be. I'm gonna grab a screwdriver here and just guide it in. It's only going through a little bit of material. There we go. Just pushed it through the back. Had a little piece of foam in the way. So here we've got, you can pull this all the way through. We've got our little hole. This is such a small hole that it's not gonna weaken the wing at all, so I don't have to worry about that. And then we're gonna end up putting some double-sided tape and securing this down here. So because this is a glider, aerodynamics are at a premium. And so by having this wire go straight through the hole into the fuselage itself, it'll limit the drag that this wire will have if it's, you know, following the edge here. So we just want the wire to go straight into the fuselage like this. So now we're gonna grab some double-sided tape and secure this down, and then we'll solder up the other side of our lead here, so that it can connect to the board. Okay, so a little side note here. It's important to note that the board that you connect your little 3-pin connector to, don't trust the colors. So to connect to our cameras here, it looks like, oh, maybe red to red and black to black. However, this is not the case. You actually want to flip these colors. So for our example, the red on the plane goes to the black on the camera, which is confusing, I know, but we have checked the voltage coming out of here, and I know it's confusing, but we checked the voltage with our multimeter, and you just need to switch the black and the reds. Simple as that. But just don't get that confused, otherwise it won't work. So just a side note, red on the camera goes to black on the plane, and red on the plane goes to black on the camera. All right, so here we got our camera going through our hole that we had just created. And so we put 2 little pieces of double-sided tape, and that's just to create this flat surface here. And so we'll have one final piece of double-sided tape going across the top, just like this. Like that, stick it down. And so now, as you can see, we have a way flatter surface that we're working with instead of this super rounded surface. And so that means our camera will stick on a lot better. So just showing it off like this, you can see a lot more is touching the tape now than maybe like this. How you can see the corners, there's a lot of wobble there. So this will secure it down really nice. And then we'll feed this wire through the back and then get to the fuselage. All right, so something to note too, with this plastic piece, it's got this cutout for your ailerons, but because we're adding this cord in here, we're gonna wanna cut out a little notch here too, so that our wires can be routed through the top, and then they're out of the way of these 2 servos here. Because that's the main reason for the shield, is just to keep these servos from interfering with the wires, and the wires interfering with the servos. So we'll just cut this out here real quick. Just take a little box cutter here, and we'll try and follow the same kind of pattern that they have. So let's see, without cutting myself, I'm gonna keep changing the orientation. Just we'll just cut all the way off the top there. All right, so we'll just cut all the way through here, and then we'll just trim this piece way back here. We don't need this to be this huge piece. We just need a little shield. First try here. So now we just chopped off the corner here, and so then we put it back together. It'll go in just how it was, but now we've got a spot for our cords over here, and then when we rest them over at the top, they won't interfere with the servos, just like that.
All right, so first thing we're gonna do is take our 3-pin connector, again linked in the description, and we're gonna cut it maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches up, and we're gonna cut all 3 wires. Which reminds me, we don't need this yellow wire. So I'm just gonna go down near the base and just snip it off. We don't need it. We will never need it for this camera. So now we're down to just the red and the black wire. Pretty straightforward. So next step, we're going to strip the end of the wire off so we can actually solder it on. So all you need to do is get a little pliers. What is it called?
Yeah, like linesman, wire cutter.
You get a wire cutter for cutting wires, and you're just gonna pinch the end, not super hard, and just pull, and hopefully this casing on the wire will come off. There, and you just need a little bit to connect to the other wires, because we're gonna do that on the other side too. So I'm gonna do that to the black wire as well. So you just need a little bit there, and so as you can see, both wires just have a little bit of exposed wire on the end, and so I'm going to twist those up to make sure they're all good, and then I'm going to set that aside for now, and we're going to cut this other adapter that came with the camera, so that's super handy if you get the camera that we linked, but you're going to just cut it right in half. That's about good, just so that you have enough room to work with and solder these 2 wires together. So this other side we don't need. We do need the 1-cell side. And we're gonna do the same thing of stripping the ends of both of these wires. This should be, again, really smooth. Bam, and okay. So after you do that, you'll have 2 wires that have both exposed ends. And so you're gonna take your heat shrink, also linked in the description, we got a nice case of it, and just make sure that the wires or the heat shrink fits on the wire, because if it doesn't fit, you can't put it on, obviously. So we're gonna put both of the heat shrinks on one side, doesn't matter which, and then the next part is called tinning the wires. So we're gonna dip both of the exposed wires into flux, and what flux does, it removes oxides, and it makes the wires take the solder a lot better. So we dipped the side in the flux, so we're going to take our tin and apply it to our soldering iron. As you can see, don't breathe that stuff in, but they've got a little bit of tin on the edge of the soldering iron, and then all you're going to do is touch these very quick, and all of a sudden they'll turn very bright and silvery, or maybe a little bit gold, but you can see it's now nice and shiny. It's got everything we need. And that's one completely tinned and prepped. So we're gonna do that to the other wire. So again, first step, dip it in the flux, get a nice healthy amount on there, touch the wires with the soldering iron with a little bit of tin on the end. They'll smoke, and then it'll be very shiny and nice. So that means both wires are now prepped and ready to solder together. So I'm going to set up real quick this nice handy dandy wire holder. And you guessed it, linked in the description. But it is super handy for really tiny wires, and all it is 2 alligator clips that you can clip wires into. So I'll clip one side, and the other wire in the other. And now remember, we did say this earlier, but we are gonna go red wire to black wire. This is where red to black. I can't be any more clear about this. If it's red to red, it won't work. If it's black to black, it won't work. Red to black. And so I'm gonna line these up so that they are pretty much touching. Well, until they are touching, because that's what we want. And all we're gonna do is take the tweezers, which are over here, and we are just going to apply a little bit of tin to the soldering iron to make sure that it can flow really nice. And we're just going to hold these wires together, and just, it's super easy. And these wires are tiny, so it's going to be quick. You just touch them together, just like that, blowing it to cool it off. But now you can see these wires are stuck together. That's perfect. So now all we got to do is replicate that on the other wire. And once again, this will be quick, this will be easy. You touch the two wires together, a little bit of solder on the soldering iron. That wasn't as quick. Let it cool for a second, and we have a connection. Give it a little bit of wiggle, because when it's flying, it won't be perfect conditions. I can actually see at the bottom that this isn't as connected as I want, so you just keep holding it, and it'll separate or get even better. And now you can see it should be a nice shiny blob in between these wires, and that means it is connected. So once you are at a happy point, disconnect your soldering iron and wipe it on a wet sponge to get all the extra solder off, because it's better for the soldering iron to cool off without any extra things on there. Set that aside on somewhere that won't melt or get damaged. So we're putting that aside for now. Next step, close up your flux. This stuff dries out, pro tip. And next, what we have to do is this heat shrink we put on earlier. That's because right now we can't, if they weren't already on here, we couldn't put them on. So we're gonna slide these over the joints. And what that's gonna do is, if you apply heat to these, they will shrink down, hence the name heat shrink, and protect these wires. So I've got the Hanger 9 Deluxe heat gun, which we've been using for quite a few years, and all it is a very high-powered hair dryer. So I'm going to plug it in. I'll kill the audio because it gets a little loud. It is a hair dryer. So yeah, I'm going to hold this on here, and all it is, you let it warm up by holding it away from you, and once it gets warm, you just hold it on. It's really easy. So as you can see, you can zoom in there, these wires, or the heat shrink has shrunk. To put it in a very concise word, the wires, or the joints that we just created, are all protected by the heat shrink, and it's not going to accidentally short out and touch other surrounding wires. So this is our wire, and what you can do now to help get rid of the noise that comes from having a lot of wires is just twist them together. So like, as you can see, they go together really nicely, and you're just twisting them. You don't have to twist it a whole ton, but just keeping these wires nice and connected is just good practice when it comes to very small wiring. And that's what your wire should look like.
All right, so now we should have everything we need to get this back together. We've got our wire that we just made, our custom wire. We've got our modified little servo shield, and we have our camera, which is attached with the double-sided tape, and the cord is coming out the bottom. So for starters, we take our little 3-pin connector here, and we plug it in to this back one, the only 3-pin available slot, so I don't have to worry about messing that up. Plug that in, make sure it connects good. And now we can plug in or put in our plastic shield servo protector. And so from here, we can plug in our camera lead. So this is going to come out. This is that 1-cell lead. We'll plug it in here. Won't receive power yet. There we go. And now we'll plug in our aileron cord. And so this is where it gets a little bit finicky because the aileron cord isn't very long. And I might be blocking it, but you plug it into this large slot here, large port. And there it is. Make sure that clicks in. So that's going to be in. And now close this up and make sure that all your wires are inside the canopy. They can be on top of the shield, that's what it's for. And so now I've got these two hooks here. They go into the two slots there. Then you close this up, and now look on the sides. Make sure that you don't have any wires sticking out the side on either side. And so you're gonna take this, and there might be some wires kind of preventing it from closing all the way. Just apply a little bit of force. You're just flexing that plastic shield, which is just fine. So now take it, remember with the wing, push it in, and then twist it clockwise like that. And so now it's in line with the fuselage. And now we have our camera cord is inside the fuselage. It's going through this hole. We don't have to worry about this really ever again. Maybe if you're moving this around, you can undo the wing and place it in the box that it came in, but it should be set up from here. And so now we'll plug in the battery and just do a little test to make sure that our camera is working. And so here, plug it in. And so we have lights on the back, and it's on R4, race band 4. And so we know that the battery is working. And so we can see kind of what the plane sees. So also something we found out is that putting the battery, this is the 3S 300 milliamp battery. If you put them sideways, then there's enough space to put your cords to either side of the battery, which makes putting the canopy on just a little bit easier. And sometimes you have to fiddle with these cords to make sure that it works. But there's the canopy on. So when you're flying, propeller will spin, and then when you're gliding, prop goes back, and this is kind of what you see. All right, this is the Inverted Aviators Conscendo mod. We did it here first. And so we've got, our FPV camera wires running along the fuselage. In here, we've got our battery hatch and our wires coming out. And yeah, this is the nice finished product.
Yeah, and we will include the maiden video and the quad cam video of this plane flying in another video, because this is already getting pretty long. So stick around if you want to see this bird in the air.